Afternoon. I'm Molly Young from the Miami University Alumni Association, and today, as part of the Alumni Association's webinar series, we present Infrastructure for Innovation. Joining us for today's webinar is Robert Bell, University Architect and Director of Planning, Architecture, and Engineering here at Miami. Welcome to you, Robert. Thank you for
Hello.
being here with us to share a little bit about what's going on and what's going up and all that other good stuff in between. So as a reminder to our live viewers, you can submit questions during the webinar using the Ask a Question button at the bottom of your video. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Robert, to get us started. Thanks so
Okay,
much.
great. Thanks, Molly. Hello, everyone. So I'm going to talk about our most recent projects. I've got about 5 projects I'm going to highlight, and I'm going to sort of give a little bit of how we approach these projects. It's not just going to be a bunch of slides of the final project. If you want to see more of the final project, you'll have to come to campus and visit us. So with that, I'm going to get right into it. So the first project I'm going to talk about is the Clinical Health Sciences and Wellness Building. This is a rendering that we did during the design process. And I'll talk about sort of the look of the building itself, how it was laid out, and how we got to the final product here. So in our projects, when we bring on our consultants, one of the first things that we like to do with the user group is decide what are the drivers for this particular project. So for the Clinical Health Sciences and Wellness Building, they wanted a building that was transformational. They wanted it to be cutting edge for the nursing and the PA programs in there. It was very important to the leadership that there was a sense of connectedness throughout the building. There is a sense in the health fields that sometimes there's silos and the different disciplines don't interact enough, and that's something that in practice the professionals are trying to improve, and so we wanted to foster that in the building itself. And then some other things, just very experiential learning. These are kind of hands-on types of programs, and since it was a health-focused building, we wanted the building itself to help with the well-being of the students and the faculty and staff inside. So our first task was to figure out where this building was going to go. This building was going to have nursing and the physician associate program, which were kind of new to the Oxford campus, as well as take over the clinic for health services and student counseling and our wellness services. So we actually looked at quite a number of sites across campus. So we looked at a couple areas of campus that we referred to as the health district and the science district. So in the science district, we thought it would be close to some of the courses that the students would be taking in their first couple years, those microbiology courses, biology courses. The health district had the advantage of being close to some of the other program partners like K&H and Phillips Hall, as well as some of the recreational facilities in that quad. We ultimately decided on the health district and the location of the existing health services center at that time. So around December of 2019, we demolished the existing health services building and started construction on this new building. In this photograph, you can see the Campus Avenue garage in the lower left corner and just the little end of Nellie Craig Walker Hall at the top of the photo. We did take over some parking as well as the health services center. And so this was full swing when COVID hit in March of 2020. This was one of a very few number of projects that continued through the pandemic without any interruption. So this is a floor plan of the building, and this is just one of the upper floors, and I just wanted to use this to demonstrate some of the things that we were taking from those project drivers to put into the facility. So you can see the building has kind of these 3 wings connected by a long corridor. So we had divided the building among the functions. So on the south or the left of the slide in the blue dotted line, that wing of the building was for the clinics. So we have the health services clinic on the first floor, the counseling clinic on the second floor, student counseling services, and the speech pathology clinic on the upper floor. The other 2 wings would house the academic programs within them. And then sort of tying all those together is this large corridor through the building that we referred to as the health corridor. And then those things kind of brought everything together, and including the leadership suite. So it was decided among the user groups that we had multiple divisions in this building, not only academic divisions, but we had student counseling services, our health clinic, non-academic units as well. And early on, the leadership decided to be co-located in the building. So on the second floor of this building, there is a leadership suite where the leaders from those academic units and non-academic units sit co-located to foster that interprofessional camaraderie and collaboration. And then we have some spaces in the building as well that foster that also. This is the lower level floor plan. It looks a little bit different than the wings above, but we've got a lot of the innovation spaces are in this lower level. We have a gross anatomy lab. So we have cadavers on site in a gross anatomy lab. We have a clinic simulation in the building. So this space is one of 8 simulation spaces in the building. This particular simulation, it has a common room in the middle and clinic rooms on the side, similar to what you would see at a doctor's office. And this can be used by the nurse practitioners or the physician associate program to meet with the students and then go in and have a simulated interaction with acting students that are acting out certain ailments. And so we're using some of our other programs across campus to help with that program. The wet dry training lab is specifically for the physician associate program, kind of a maker space in some aspects. They can work with devices there. And then the innovation classroom, we have 2 anatomage tables, which are these giant sort of touchpad tables that you can get a full set of images of a cadaver in the table, and you can actually do cross sections. You can look at certain systems at one time and take other systems away. So it's a great learning tool there. And then we've got flexible classrooms in the basement, classrooms that can be opened up. So when the nursing program has their white coat ceremony and graduation, they can fit all of their cohort in one space. And then the interprofessional lounge, which is a student open lounge space that's then connected to the floor above, and that kind of wraps through the building vertically. So we see here a section of the building that interprofessional lounge is on the bottom floor on the right. We're bringing in some natural light. We don't have the stair step space outside, but we're getting natural light from above. It's open to that first floor, and then the first floor is open to the second floor, and the second floor open visually to that third floor. So trying to connect the spaces vertically throughout the building to get that interprofessional collaboration going, as well as just some natural light in the different spaces. Then this is an image of the finished product in the lobby of the academic space. So that first floor space just off the photo to the right would be where it connects down below to the interprofessional lounge. And it's a little hard to see, but up on the top right, at the top of the stairs is a glass wall that looks into that second floor, and there's some more common space up there. This is a nursing space. This is a skills lab, and this was designed so that the space in the middle here, where the people are sitting down at the tables, is set up like a classroom. They have some technology on the wall. They can meet as a classroom, go over what they're going to do for the day, and then they go out to the beds and they can practice what they've learned and apply it here. These are typically around 10 to 12 beds with a couple students around them. So this building finished up in the fall of 2023 for the physician associate program to start in the summer, and then the rest of the programs moved in for the fall. So we have the nursing program, the physician associate program, speech pathology and audiology, student counseling, the student health services, which is run by the TriHealth, along with the employee health services, the speech and hearing clinic, the wellness clinic, as well as student wellness offices, and they have a couple spaces throughout the building to increase that wellness of the students and staff in the building. And so I'm going to move on now. So that's the clinical health. So some new programs there that we had to figure out how to design for a couple of new programs. Moving on to data science. Here we were dealing with some programs that we knew were going to be changing over time. We had met with the user groups that were going to go into this building, and one of the first things that we were told was that these programs are going to change and morph over time at a fairly rapid pace. We don't know what kind of majors, what kind of jobs people will have in 5 years even. So one of the challenges here was to create a flexible building, create a building that had the right kind of infrastructure of spaces and technology to accommodate that flexibility. So they had their drivers. They also wanted to be a cutting edge facility. They specifically, identified that recruitment was a priority for the building. They wanted the facility to help with the recruitment. And then partnerships was very important. Outside partnerships with industry, as well as partnerships with other units across campus. Again, we had multiple divisions coming together. So one of the first things that we did in this program was look at the campus as a whole and look at where are all the places across campus that students in these majors are taking classes currently. So this is sort of a heat map where the circle gets larger for the volume of courses taught in a certain location. But you can see that we were working with programs that had students that were taking classes across the whole campus. There was some focus kind of in that center of campus between Upham and Farmer School of Business and Laws and Hughes. So with McVeigh being right next to Benton Hall, it was a good location for those students for those courses. So in this building, we've got emerging technology and business design. We have statistics. We have computer science and engineering. We have the Center for Analytics and Data Science, the Armstrong Institute, and Ames. That's Ames. And then the Farmer School of Business has some space, though they don't have offices in the building. So as we looked at that heat map of the campus, we transferred that to the building. So before we got to how the building was going to be sort of laid out, we looked at what are the programs and how are they connected? How are these courses interacting? How are the students going through their day and the different courses throughout their career at Miami? How is the research being collaborated with different units? And we kind of laid out on the building how that could happen. And then when you get to the physical layout of the building, we landed on this concept diagram of the public space in the middle really being more open. It would have a little bit more activity. We wanted it to be very inviting for those external partners. But the spaces right off of there would be more programmatic spaces that were utilizing those partners, utilizing the collaboration spaces for that to happen. And then the more faculty office, private work, quiet zones on the exterior. So we looked at how that could happen in plan, and here's an early concept floor plan where the light yellow is just kind of the public space, the circulation, the open lounges. Those orange spaces are those spaces where the collaboration can happen, where we expect people from multiple units, external partners to come and meet with the people in the building. And then the blue spaces are the more quiet office spaces. And that's how we kind of organized the building. And so we looked at how that could happen over the building floors, and we were going with a couple different schemes at this point in the process of how would that work in plan to most benefit the programs and foster that collaboration, make it inviting. And so we landed on scheme 1 on the left, where we see that sort of quieter spaces around the perimeter, the more public spaces on the first floor and in the center of the building. And then here's a more finished floor plan. Again, those yellow spaces are kind of the open spaces. Anyone can come in, use the building. They're open lounges, open study spaces. The orange spaces are those learning spaces. And then the blue are the offices. This is the first floor. So we have the centers, the Statistical Consulting Office, the Ames, the Center for Analytics and Data Science in this upper right corner in the light blue, since those would be interacting specifically with people inside and outside the building. And then as we go to the upper floor, you can see a little more blue as we get into the faculty offices. But we really wanted to continue to have some of the collaboration spaces and instructional spaces going up vertically through the building. So we see on this lower portion, the orange space in the middle and the bottom of the plan is an open space, but it's specifically designed for students to be working as teams on projects after hours outside of the classroom. And then the upper floor, more of the same. So what we ended with as a product was an open atrium in the building, and we're on the second floor here looking up to the third, and you can kind of peek down to the first floor a little bit. It's open spaces, a lot of circulation, but then we have these little pod rooms that are wrapped in the wood and glass that are collaboration spaces. Some of them are dedicated to a specific function. Some of them are just open for impromptu meetings or scheduled meetings. And then this is that student workspace that I highlighted on the plan. Tables and chairs for teams to get together, work outside of the classroom. And they've got some beautiful view over there. You can see through the windows the psychology building in the distance there. And then this is the first floor. This is an area just outside the extended reality stage. So we see a couple things happening here. Up on the wall where it says McVeigh Data Science, this is actually a projection, and it's being projection mapped onto the wood surface of that wall. And then the doors opened up into the XR stage, the extended reality stage. And that was done purposefully so that events could be held in the XR stage space and spill out into the lobby of the building. And that's exactly what happened during the ribbon cutting, the grand opening. We had President Crawford was on the stage. He was being projected out in this space, and we had sort of the audience outside the space here. Next project I want to talk about is Bachelor Hall. So clinical health, we had new programs in McVeigh. We had some new emerging programs, and we knew they were going to change. Bachelor Hall the workhorse building for us. It had 181 offices in it, 23 classrooms, math, English, the Ohio Writing Project, the ACE program, and it had speech pathology in the lower level. We knew speech pathology was moving out into the new clinical health building. Math was going to move out, and we were going to move in other humanities into this building. So this was going to be a building that the vast majority of Miami students are going to go through this building because it houses a lot of Miami Plan core courses. So we really wanted to make this a humanities hub. We wanted to make it a space that really highlighted the humanities and gave some space for the Humanities Center. And then we're bringing in some other programs. So in this building, when it is done, we will have the Department of English, History, Philosophy and Comparative Religion, the Media, Journalism and Film, the Humanities Center, and the ACE program, along with the Ohio Writing Project. So as you probably remember, the building has a courtyard in the center that was open, and then there was kind of a breezeway and then another chunk of the building on the west side. So we had some challenges with the building itself that didn't foster that collaboration because it kind of disjointed the occupants inside. So we wanted to correct that. So we're going to close the breezeway, capture that space, and we're going to enclose the courtyard as well. So the drivers here was, we see some of the same things, transformative environments. We really wanted this to be a hub, specifically for the humanities, but really this idea of community and bringing people together. When we talked to the users about this project, they really wanted to foster people being in the building being a place that people wanted to be, and do their research, do their meetings, do their just informal meetups in person in the building, and make it a welcoming place to be. So when we talk about the learning, the formal learning in this building, we have a wide variety of ways in which instructors and professors are delivering content. So we looked at the different ways that classrooms can help foster the different modes in which professors are delivering content. So this is a slide that was early on in the design process, where we were looking at different types of setups for the classroom, what those setups allowed and didn't allow, and what type of courses could be taught in different setups. So we met with faculty, we talked about how they teach, we looked again at the types of courses that the students were going to be taking in the classroom, and we came up with a range of classroom types for the building. So we have everything from a traditional kind of front-facing lecture style classroom that offers less flexibility, similar room, but with the flexibility of the tables and chairs being able to move, maybe a couple points of where the teacher can be and present information, but allow people to move the furniture around really on a daily basis or even in class to go from lecture to group work. Some rooms where we knew group work was going to be sort of the way the course was delivered, we looked at rooms that would have technology throughout, but the tables were kind of more fixed into groups. And then some rooms where we have really technology everywhere, the furniture is flexible. It really offers a lot of different setups for the faculty to deliver content. It could be changed, quickly during a session, or it could be changed, for a certain semester, for a certain course, in there. It also allowed more flexibility in professors being able to kind of try new modes of delivering content. So it might not be that they're doing one mode throughout the entire semester. So they might need a classroom that can change throughout the semester for them. So we looked at the building as a whole and how people were going to move through the building. Similar kind of relationship of more activity, classrooms, instructional learning on the lower levels in the center of the building, more of the private quiet work in the offices on the upper floors and at the perimeter. One of the things that we have been doing even before the clinical health is co-locating some of the leadership suites. We find that this makes for an efficient use of administrative resources. And so this is a diagram we used during the planning phase to talk with the leadership and how they could be located, co-located among multiple departments, share some admin resources, and then, have an identifying wall. This has become more and more important for the departments to be able to have some presence, have some branding, as more of the recruiting is kind of being put on the departments themselves. So here's a layout diagram of the building. The dark orange is the formal learning spaces, and then the blue is the offices and workspace. This is the lower levels. This will be primarily the media, journalism, and film spaces. And then the first floor, where we've got the bulk of the classrooms, the green spaces are what we're calling community spaces, although some of them will be used for instruction as well. But in the middle, we see the courtyard that we're capturing being basically ringed by classrooms. So this will be a student-focused, circulation space with a lot of activity in it. The space to the bottom, larger green space, is a classroom and space that can be used for lectures in the evening. It's a larger classroom. It's also set up specifically for film screening for MJF. And then the space above that is set up like a classroom. That is the dedicated humanities center space. So they will program that themselves. And then as we get to the upper floors, some of the collaboration and community spaces is sprinkled amongst the offices here. And then a couple of dedicated reading rooms and lecture spaces or seminar spaces. And then up on the upper floor, mostly offices. These were users that we heard needed more quiet time, more research is done in their office. And so we limited the amount of sort of classroom spaces that were coming up here. These are smaller instructional spaces, so these would likely be higher level courses. So you don't have the volume of students on the upper floors here to support that more quiet heads down work. So this is what the courtyard of Bachelor looked like. Just a fun fact, if you didn't know, that graphic in the ground there, that tiling is called a Penrose tile. This was a graphic math problem that wasn't solved until the 70s. And this, I read somewhere that this was one of the first physical installations of the Penrose tiling anywhere in the country. Unfortunately, it was installed in a way that we were not able to lift it up and move it. So we've lost that through the construction. Math will no longer be in the building. So as Math moves to their permanent home in Upham after this project, we'll try to do something special for them. This is what the courtyard looks like today. This was taken yesterday. Construction is underway. We've done abatement and demolition, and we're getting ready to dig out the middle of that courtyard down to the lower level. So the atrium space will actually be 4 stories tall, bring some natural light down into that lower level. And this is a rendering of what we hope that will look like. Lots of natural light coming in, classrooms off to the side. You can see in the distance is a space for the Humanities Center, and right above it is a reading room. So getting the Humanities Center sort of front and center there. This is what Bachelor looked like with some classrooms and the corridors. This is what it looks like today. And then this is what we hope some of the spaces look like. This is a rendering of the Humanities Center space itself, right off the main atrium, set up for lecture style in this rendering, for a guest speaker perhaps. So those are the building projects. I'm going to move to some true infrastructure, utility infrastructure now. So what I hope I was able to convey in talking about some of the facility projects is that we're really trying to allow the facilities to help the users in the building do what they want to do. We're not just building classroom buildings and offices, you know, to get the most efficient building. We're really trying to understand what the experiences those programs want to give the students and their faculty. Doing a lot of research with the consultants on the course mapping, on the student curriculum, on the research that the faculty is doing. And so you see some different approaches in different buildings. Some buildings want to have more of the students sprinkled throughout and amongst the faculty offices. Some don't want that level of interaction sort of haphazardly. So we're able to accommodate that as you know, in certain projects as much as we can. But literally underneath all that is the infrastructure of some of the campus systems. We do have a goal to be carbon neutral by 2040. And so we have been working on our carbon reduction for quite some time. This is a graph showing the metric tons of CO2 per gross square feet. And the graph starts off on the left in 2008 and then comes down to today. I got this kind of hot off the presses from one of my engineers who's getting ready to do a presentation at a professional conference. So you can see here that the orange line is our total carbon reduction. So from 2008, if we use that as the baseline as 0%, today we're right at 50 for our total carbon reduction, and our carbon reduction per building gross square foot is actually over 60% reduction since 2008. In the beginning, there was a lot of things that were easy to look at and say, here's an area where we can save some energy pretty quickly, pretty easily, sometimes relatively inexpensively. But we've kind of exhausted most of those opportunities. We are now to the point where getting down to carbon neutrality, getting significant reductions in carbon is going to take some effort. But I think we have a great success story. So the blue line here is the sort of energy per gross square foot. And again, from 2008, we've significantly reduced that from the 165 number down to the 83. This is sort of energy units. But the red line is showing that at the same time, while we were significantly reducing the energy usage on campus, the red line is representing the square footage of our campus. So since 2008, we've increased the square footage of campus from about 6.3 million square feet to over 8 million square feet. So in that time, we've added more than 2 million square feet of building to the campus, but we were still able to reduce the energy use by that much, which is just really a great success story for us. Anytime I go to a professional conference and present this kind of information, I get multiple people coming up to me from, pretty prestigious universities as well, saying, "Hey, this is really impressive. You guys are really leading the charge here," and that's where we want to be. This is a little bit of an older example, but this is one of the ways in which we've been able to do that. I think this is a great story. We have a great hockey program, a great hockey arena. Our engineers and worked to get the energy that we were putting in to create the ice for the hockey program and capturing the heat from that energy to use elsewhere. And so that resulted in about an annual savings of $300,000. So it's those kind of ideas that are coming from our staff, coming from consultants to get us to that carbon neutrality. One of the key pieces of that is geothermal. So the idea of geothermal is that we're using the earth as sort of an energy battery. So we can pump water through pipes in the ground, and the ground is sort of a constant temperature. And so that we can extract that and use it for heating and cooling in different seasons. What this graph shows a couple different things. What it's showing is the heating in the red and the cooling in the blue, but the darker amount of the graph, the darker red and the darker blue in the sort of center of the horizontal line, is showing that we can get that heating hot water and chilled water by using the geothermal and getting some heat recovery, as opposed to generating heat through steam, through using carbon materials. So the more that we can use that geothermal, the more we can eat into the lighter colors, where we're not generating it sort of from scratch, if you will. Part of the advantage of this is simultaneous heating and cooling. So where there are parts of campus that might need heating and other parts need cooling at the same time, we can move that water around campus and make advantage of the water at the temperature that it's at. If it's giving off heat because we're creating ice in one location, we can use that to heat a building somewhere else. Another thing that this graph shows in an abstract way is that we have a climate here in Oxford, Ohio, that really lends itself to that idea of simultaneous heating and cooling. We have swings in temperature and able to use the geothermal quite advantageously, so that we really get the cooler temperatures in the winter and the hotter in the summer. And to take advantage of that, we always have spaces on campus that need some cooling, and we always have some spaces on campus that need some heat. So geothermal, we have across campus. Our first large installation of geothermal was on the Western campus. My number there, 600, is actually, it's closer to 690. I think I had a typo there, but that green area there over on the Western campus was one of our first installations of large scale geothermal, and that kind of pink dot or star next to it is the geothermal plant. So that's where all the wells are going, to that plant. We are currently drilling about 520 wells in the front lawn of Millett Hall, and that will go up to the star kind of in the middle there at Billings Hall, where we have the north plant. We actually have some other geothermal locations around campus. At Elliott and Stoddard, when we renovated those halls in 2011, we installed 17 geothermal wells, and that is a closed system just for those 2 buildings. Likewise, right below it, we have 7 wells right outside of Upham Hall that assists with the microscopy facility that's in the lower level of the north wing of Upham Hall. And then over on the athletic complex, we have about 80 wells that serves the Gunlock indoor and the athletic performance venue down there. Those are closed systems that just work within the building itself, whereas the Millette Hall and the Western are tied to the plants, and those then allow us to distribute that heating, hot water, and chilled water throughout campus. So we are currently converting many of the buildings as we bring those plants online, converting the north plant to the geothermal to take buildings that are being heated with steam now off of steam onto hot water to reduce our carbon even further. And we're one of our next steps of the utility master plan is to the Western geothermal plant to expand it for phase 3 for a few additional buildings over on the Western campus. And then we're getting ready to enter into our first foray into solar. So this, if you can recognize it, on the right side of the image is 73. The rest of campus is sort of up above this photograph. We're looking right down onto Western Drive. The geothermal plant is right in the middle. And we've got 2 locations identified for solar panels. So we have traditionally been able to purchase electricity quite cheaply. We do a few things to get a very good rate for our electricity, but the return on investment is getting better and better every day with solar. And we got some money in a gift to the university to create these solar fields, along with, you're seeing a trail that would go around to create a sustainability park that will go around the solar fields and highlight some of the sustainability efforts that Miami has done over the years. So the larger field on the right is on some existing green space outside the geothermal field. The smaller solar array on the left is actually where Thompson Hall is located right now. The housing and dining master plan that we developed in 2010 actually called for Thompson Hall to come offline at some point. We did not think that we could renovate Thompson Hall and end up with a product at the same level of experience for the students of the other buildings we were renovating or building new. So we identified Thompson Hall to come offline. We are in the process of doing abatement, and we're getting ready to demolish Thompson Hall here in the next few months, and then we'll create green space for that solar array. So this just zooms in a little bit. You can see a little bit better where some of the existing halls are, Clausen Hall and the Child Development Center, and where these solar arrays will occur. So this is really exciting for us to get into the solar. Our buildings, well, we have a lot of buildings across campus. The architecture of our buildings with the sloped roofs and sort of a smaller footprint of buildings, we don't really have the opportunity to do rooftop solar like you might see on a large flat roof building. So we're taking advantage of the green space we have. And this array here will actually generate enough energy to about offset the energy used, the electricity used by the geothermal plant. And they're right on top of that well field of the geothermal wells going into that plant as well. So a great story there, where now we can actually sort of have a visual for some of the sustainability efforts we're doing on the infrastructure side. So I believe that was my last slide. So I know I went through a lot. I'm sure there are some questions. I'll be happy to answer any questions I can.
Thank you, Robert. That was actually really interesting to kind of hear the ins and outs of sort of all of this new sustainability structure that's going up. This is really cool, and I think um, certainly future forward thinking. I like that. So we do have a couple of questions. We have some
Okay.
that came in live. We've got a couple here to build on. So this first question comes from Carol. And I think she's taking into consideration that we've moved sort of from in person to virtual and back again. So, given the overall demand for physical space and places to convene, do you find that it's increasing or decreasing due to the options of doing it both ways? And how has that been impactful?
So it's a great question. It's a very interesting question. So we are currently at the point where we think we are space rich. We think we have more square footage than we need. However, that isn't necessarily being driven by courses being taught offline in significant numbers. So we were designing Bachelor Hall renovation right, at the end of the pandemic, and we had some, pretty serious conversations with the dean's office and the provost's office about, this is a building with a lot of classrooms in it and a lot of offices. Are we going to all be remote, moving forward? And the answer that we got back was no. We are Miami. We are focused on that teaching scholar model. We are a residential campus. We are coming back in full force. And about a year after we came back on campus from the pandemic, the provost office shared with me that we were at about 93% of our course offerings were in person, and that's the direction we were going to continue.
That makes sense. Thank you for that. This next question comes from Maureen, class of 92. She asks, how is it that so many university buildings are built and then not too long, 3, 5, so on years later, are renovated or remodeled? And she wants to know, how can universities work with architecture firms to design, facilities that anticipate needs and that maybe
Mhm.
can grow as those needs change?
Yeah, so that has been a change, just in even my time here. So you might have heard people refer to, a 100-year building. As an institution that's been here more than 200 years, we want to make sure that we're building buildings that are going to last. But what we used to refer to as a 100-year building meant that we were building a facility for a specific function and it would perform that function well for 100 years. It was built very stout, but it was built in a way that was not very flexible. What we have transitioned to is building a building that can last 100 years because it allows the flexibility for things to change over time. So while we do our best to anticipate trends and growth when we're doing a major renovation, certain programs just change more frequently, more quickly than others. And not just on the academic side, things like dining tends to change quite frequently. So now when we say a 100-year building, we're building a structure that can facilitate that change over the life of that structure. So we do see some buildings get a full renovation, and then we're going in. Typically, it's more targeted. It's not a full renovation, but it's a section of a building or a certain program has changed, and we're able to modify a section of the building to allow another program in, or they need, the research space that's kind of changed over time. They get a new researcher that needs something specific. So thankfully, it's not that we're totally renovating the whole building again, but the building allows for that more targeted renovation.
Excellent. So I think a good example of that, like 100 your building growing and changing with you, is that what's going to happen sort of to Bachelor? Can we
Yeah.
sort of anticipate maybe that actually being a 100-year building because now it's being made to be more flexible and modern? Mike Pugh actually asked a question very, very much in that realm. So sort of moving forward, that's the plan of attack is a
Yeah.
little bit more flexibility. Awesome.
And, and having that diversity of spaces. So not only in the instructional spaces, like I described in Bachelor Hall, for different types of courses or teaching methods, but even in the public spaces, having a variety of large open spaces, smaller, quieter spaces, meeting rooms that are, for a couple people as opposed to all just being conference rooms. So just a variety of spaces offers flexibility throughout the day for different people, for different uses.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Let's see. I've got a couple more questions that have come in. Randy says, not a question, but it's good to see that the future of the university's facilities are in capable and good hands. He extends his thank you to
Thank you.
you.
Thank you very much.
This is a good question from Robert. Like what kind of relationship does your office maintain with other outside firms? And he gives a couple examples, Moody and Nolan, Perkins and Will. Are they part of projects from the outset? Do they enter like sort of throughout the process? Can you
It can
talk a little bit
vary
about
from
that?
project to project, but on the large projects, they're coming in pretty early. So the clinical health building, we did some internal meetings with the user groups early on. We toured many different facilities around the country of nursing programs, physician programs. We brought a consultant in 2019, in the beginning of 2019, and then that building did not open up until the summer of 2023. So sometimes we're bringing in the consultants. We have a pretty good idea of what our needs are. Sometimes we have a less clear picture of really what we need, and we're bringing them in to help us do that really early work of that course mapping, and looking at the courses from the academic side before we're even talking about the facility itself. I had my former boss, Bob Keller, former university architect. He always used to say that the project is the campus. So we might be doing a renovation of Bachelor Hall or building a clinical health building, but really it's the campus at large. You need to consider the entire campus.
Which is probably why this campus has maintained such a sense of its original, what it was meant to be at its
Mhm.
inception. So very good job doing that. Thank you. Can you just, from your perspective as an architecture professional, as a planner, can you tell us what the future of university architecture looks like? Not just here, but sort of like what do you think is going to be sort of top of mind moving forward as you all do this across the country and wherever?
So there's two topics that have been, in all the newsletters and all the conferences lately. One is artificial intelligence and how that's going to change the profession. Um, and we're pretty early on in that. There's a lot of exciting tools that the consultants can use, that we can use, to collect data, to analyze that data, to try to transform that data into something useful. Right now, I would say we've got some tried and true tools that are getting AI enhancements that are fairly useful. There's a lot of new tools out there that we're not quite sure if they're going to stick yet. We're not quite sure the best way to use them yet. A lot of the architecture firms are using image generation to have early discussions with users on, is this the kind of look and feel you're going for, to run multiple scenarios of things. The other hot topic right now is enrollment trends and projections, and space on campus. Are people growing or are we shrinking? So there's a lot of universities and colleges that are looking at this date of 2027, and there's a a significant drop in the number of high school graduates. Some people are addressing that by saying, okay, maybe we need to constrict. Others are looking at saying, okay, we're going to grow and we're going to capture as many of those as we can, along with remote work. While the professors, are interacting with students on a daily basis, and here at Miami, those are mostly in-person classes. We have plenty of administrative units that it's very easy and efficient for them to work remotely. And so we're seeing a large change in how office space is being used. And so that's a big topic of conversation right now is, should we be building different office spaces? Should we be building fewer office square footage? Faculty don't like to talk about giving up an office, but we have over time reduced the kind of standard size of a faculty office. But we've flexed that depending on the type of work and research that faculty tend to do. So Bachelor Hall, humanities, they tend to work with books. They tend to do work in their office. Their offices are a few square feet larger than in McVeigh, where they're outside going around the building, working with people, working in labs and that kind of thing.
Smart, actually. Lots of things you don't really consider as just a layman person in a space, the consideration and planning.
And
Well,
that's one of the exciting things of working on a campus is you get to learn those things over time and see it change over time. That's part of why I love my job.
well, things change at warp speed lately, so I hope you're buckled up. I mean, it just seems like the second we get our thumb, and you mentioned AI, which I think is going to flip so many things on its head. So, architecture here at Miami, I guess, will not be spared from that either. So it's exciting to know that you all are sort of up to speed on the direction you're moving and the direction everyone is moving, and that's really cool. Thank you so much. We're getting down to the wire. I don't believe we have too many more questions. Just one last thing before we
Mhm.
go. Can you just once more, and I know you talked about the solar installation. Can you give us a timeline? I can't
Oh
remember if
yeah.
you said that, when that might
So we're
be.
we're in design right now, and the solar arrays will be constructed next summer.
Next summer. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that was one of our last questions. This has been really exciting, Robert. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. We look forward to what's ahead, and this is such a beautiful place. You do such a great job maintaining its beauty. So, thanks on behalf of all of us.
Yeah. Thanks for
Awesome.
having me.
Well, as a reminder to our audience, a recording of this webinar will be available on our website later today. That is at alumlc.org/MiamiOH. Thank you all for joining us today, and love and honor. Have a great afternoon.